Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and we're back working on the Entex Sabre jet, the F-86D, otherwise known as the Sabre Dog. It's in 1/48 scale. Actually, I believe it's 1/50th scale was the original advertised scale for it. And you could probably forgive Entex for kind of bumping it to 1/48 scale, because that's more of an established scale. This is not their own tooling. And as you saw last time on this particular project, I've nicknamed this project Flash Gordon because of the huge amount of flash that is on the various parts. And this is it. This is all it's done so far. We have an air inlet done. We've got the bottom of the cockpit basically assembled. We've got the nose and the radome here, and of course we have the seat. And just in case you didn't watch the previous episode, we're not going to be using the pilot figure. We'll flash him up here in a second. So since we're not going to be using the pilot figure, although I know some people have said, oh, why not? And you know what? We probably could clean him up pretty good. But I've decided I'm just going to save him for posterity in his flashy glory. So we actually have a fairly decent basic seat here. And let's face it, the seat in a lot of early jet fighters and in fighters from the end of the Second World War, it was just basically a metal tray. And the pilot sat on his parachute, and then there was a little bit of padding on the back and that sort of thing. There were certainly details on the sides and stuff like that. And it looks like the space in behind should have some framework on it. So what we want to do is we want to take this basic part and we want to bring it up to some sort of halfway decent standards. I mean, certainly the cushion, which is definitely there in the real plane, we can certainly do something about this, I don't know, horrible short molding here. And of course we'll get the ejection pin mark off the back of it. But the question is how much we're going to be able to see. So I'm probably going to stick the two sides of the fuselage together to see if we can see this space here behind. If we can, then I'm going to try to do some basic representation of the framework. If not, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Once again, a reminder of some of the flash we have in this kit. The flash is even taken on a little bit of a tubular shape here. All of that's got to come off. But you know what? It does break off pretty easily, so it's not the end of the world. And as I mentioned in part one, even though the panel lines are raised instead of being engraved, the detailing on this is quite nice. And I think the kit does have a lot of overall potential. This is our first test fit of any major components. And the fit all along here is actually quite good. And in front of the cockpit, it's quite nice. A little bit of jumpiness here, but that could just require some more cleaning up. The underside, I mean, this lines up, and these two parts here, usually the sort of part that doesn't come together very well. It's probably about 99% where it needs to be. So far, the actual fit of the parts isn't too tragic. Now let's see how this fits inside it. So here we have the cockpit floor and the seat back in place. And wow, boy, you can really see a lot of what's going on there. So at least in terms of the seat and what we can see, the side consoles, which is not too much, but the seat definitely, I'm going to be doing some work there to give it a little bit more accuracy and a little bit more interest. And if we look in here, you can see how this part interacts with the fuselage. Actually needs to come back just a smidge. That will end up being lined up. So you can see that this part here does in fact line up with the back of the wheel wells. If I get rid of that, you can see that these pins here, try to get a good view here. We'll move this a little bit better in the light. So you can see they've got these pins that the cockpit floor sits on. And I'm betting that this is supposed to line up like that, so that the back wall of the wheel well lines up with that. And of course, then we have our air intake that must go in like that. So you can see it actually builds up to be a reasonable representation of the real thing. There's our seat after I've done a little bit of filling on it. And I think what I'm going to do is, you can see that I've done some filling on the back here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install the padding. It looks like there's supposed to be some thin padding on there. It doesn't always show in every picture, so it's obviously a removable thing. Same thing as there's probably a removable cushion depending on whether or not the pilot is actually wearing his parachute, and if he's not, then I believe there's probably a piece of padding that goes in there. So there should be a hole right here that the seat belts come through, so I'm going to be drilling that out. In order to do that, I've got to take this big block off the back. Basically, that block corresponds to the framework that there should be, so I'm going to be building that framework. I've completed the work to the basic seat pan. I changed the profile of the sides, which should be more of a rounded curve and then going down at an angle. The segment right under the head cushion isn't exactly the right profile, but it gives a basic appearance to what's really on the seat. There should be a row of kind of square pads right there. I didn't have a piece of plastic that emulated that, so I just went with that. Then this is the lower pad, which seems to be a lot thinner. I did not put the lowest pad in, and I'm not quite sure when they would ever be using that lower pad, because when you've got a parachute there, and I can't imagine flying this plane without having a parachute. Maybe they just use that cushion for ground taxiing and things like that. So I'm leaving that off. I will still be putting some straps on here. I've started building the frame that the seat is going to go on. You can see it's still separate from the back. These two pieces on the seat back, they represent the rails that the ejection seat fits onto. I rather suspect that this should be like maybe 3 millimeters higher, but I'm not going to worry too much about it because we're going to be looking way down on an angle to it. The idea is to basically have something close to the real framework that fits around the seat, and that's what I'm aiming for. Here you can see the start I've made to improving things in the office, so to speak. I've filled the front of this giant ejection pin mark here. I don't have to do anything with the back of it. I just have to basically fill the front because, of course, the seat sits on this area here. These two pieces of styrene represent the rails that the ejection seat kind of follows as it fires out. So they've been done. I haven't done anything with the side consoles yet. We'll have to see how they turn out. Now in this shot you can see that I've got the ejection seat in place. It's not glued in yet, but I have added quite a number of little pieces to it. There's the feet pads that the pilot's feet sit on, I'm assuming while being ejected. These two loops here, I think, are for the actual setting off of the ejection seat. You can see I've added the cushion here, and I've got the framework in behind. I think it looks a lot more convincing than what there originally was there, and probably a little bit better than what the pilot is currently partially encased in. And I did drill a hole in the back of the seat right here. That's where the seat belts come through, and I will be adding those later. We'll see what this looks like once I get it all painted up. So it should surprise no one that I don't have that part. This one right there. Or I'm sure it's in the building somewhere. I just don't know where. I've looked on the sprues, and there's an empty spot where part number 9 should be. I've looked on the floor. I've looked in both workshops. I've looked through this. And I don't even remember taking it off, and I don't ever remember even having it in my hand. So I'm thinking it was probably rattling around one of the parts bags, and I didn't notice, and it just went into the garbage. So it's not the end of the world. It's just one more thing I need to actually build. So I do have, this is the radar scope that fits onto the instrument panel, and is actually not too terrible a representation of it. They do give you some decals for the side consoles and the instrument panel, so at least I know what shape it was supposed to be. So I've just basically put them onto this piece of styrene here, and I'm actually going to cut these pieces out, and then I'm going to drill out where the various dials and things are, and then I'm going to mount it on another piece of styrene, and then I'm going to paint it so that the areas that on this are clear or white, they'll end up being black, which I think should give us a bit more of a representation of the actual instrument panel. I don't foresee any difficulties in manufacturing this part. It's just something that I was not planning on making, and now I've got to make it because I'm a klutz. This is my first time sitting at the hobby bench in probably about 3 or 4 days. Let's see. I started vacation Sunday night. Saturday, me and 2 of the kids went up to Clifford for a truck show, and that video has already been posted. I actually did the editing for that earlier today and posted it. So I got very little sleep on the Saturday. I worked Saturday night, and that was just a total disaster because all of our trucks are late and everything like that. So I was quite glad to get out of the grocery store Sunday morning. I found I slept almost all day Sunday. And then me and the kids watched a movie in the evening. Then when I woke up this morning being Monday morning and the first full day of my vacation, I had a pinched nerve in my back. So I've been in agony all day, even though I wanted to be sitting here at the hobby bench doing stuff. I couldn't quite do it. So there's my sob story for today. But this is the new instrument panel. You can see there's the kit part, and then I've added it to some 10,000 sheet styrene that's got some holes drilled in it. That will be representing where the various gauges and things are. So that will be glued into the fuselage at the appropriate time. Of course, the ejection seat you saw earlier. So I think I'm going to give that some paint. We have glued the duct onto the seat. And you can see I've also added some 10,000 styrene on here with some holes drilled in it. And that weird color right there, that's dried blood, because I was drilling a hole using a number 11 X-Acto blade, and you guessed it, it slipped. And that's the scar right there. So, of course, things are just moving along just awesomely. Something else that's going on is you can see that we have some lead weights just kind of glued in the upper part of the nose here with some white glue. I like using the white glue because it adds some weight as well. So they're currently drying. Now time to move on to some other stuff. Okay, it's 4 days later. Now that I've been working on this for 4 days, I've been busy, despite the fact that technically I was on vacation this week. On Tuesday, me and Emily went over to my mom's house and Worked on my father's van for half the day in the searing sun. Basically, we're going to be transferring, hopefully, the ownership of that van into my name, but before we can do that, it has to be safetied. And like all Dodge Caravans of that vintage, it has no rocker panels. They're completely rotted out. So I've been welding in new structure in order to attach these things to, and no, I'm not good at welding. So on Tuesday and Thursday, I spent half the day working on that. On Tuesday night and Wednesday night, I went to my part-time job. Yes, even when I'm on vacation, I usually work 1 or 2 days of the part-time job. Just another grocery store. Same corporation, it's just a franchise instead. So that wiped out Thursday. Friday, Natasha and I hopped in the car and we drove to St. Catharines and we did some ship watching. There's going to be some ship watching videos coming up. If you're not into ships, please have patience with us. The modeling will continue and other subjects as well. But we do have a video, probably it's going to be released after this one, showing the algo rail in Port Colborne where it's going to be cut up. So that'll be the next video after this one. And then I'll probably clear out some of the ship videos that I'll have edited by then. And then hopefully we'll have the Dodge Wrecker coming up soon. So I haven't lost interest in it. I'm just kind of hopping around between projects. So that took 2 minutes out of this video to tell you that. So painted the side consoles here, basically black for the gauges. I was debating whether I was going to put in little bumps for switches and things like that. And I don't want this to stall out. I've had almost no time to work on this project, and I don't want it to take all summer. I want to get this done. So I'm just basically going to leave the side consoles the way they are. And I'll assemble a fuselage in a moment so you can see it's no big deal. We have the instrument panel as well. Had some black put into the gauges, and I just gave it some German gray around it. I think it looks okay. Yes, I know there's no switches or anything like that. Maybe the pilot uses the force or something to make it fly. I'm not trying to win any contests with this model. I just want it to look nice. And I think it looks pretty good. I did put some flat black on the boot that the pilot looks into to get his radar information. As you can see here, I flung some paint onto the seat. I'm probably going to give that maybe a little bit of panel wash just to give it some depth, but this is pretty much ready to go in. So here's the cockpit floor and back test fit into the fuselage. As you can see, it's other than the fact that there's some round black things in there as gauges, it's hard to tell what else is going in there. The kit doesn't come with a control stick. I'm going to be whipping one up out of some plastic rod, a little bit of super glue on the end to be the handle, and I'm probably going to throw a couple pedals down there for the rudder, and I'm going to call that done for the cockpit, because as I said mere seconds ago, if I really get bogged down on detail in this cockpit, I'm probably not going to finish this thing anytime soon. And I do want to finish it. I am not trying to win the IPMS contest with this. I just want it to look good. And if anyone gets offended by that, well, you don't have to watch any more videos. I have one more night off before I go back to work. Probably till, I think, the civic holiday in August. I will work every night between the two jobs. So I haven't made progress on anything else. I want to make some progress on this. So, some progress here. We've got the pilot seat glued in, and you can see that I've put some rudder pedals in there. Probably not super accurate, but like I said, we're looking in through a small opening. I'd rather have some so-so things there than nothing. There's also been a hole drilled between the foot plates that the pilot's feet go on when he ejects. That's going to be where our control column is going to go in. And as you can see, I've just Put a couple pieces of masking tape in there to represent the straps. I know they're not 100% accurate. There should be probably one going across here and there in a different buckle arrangement. I'm just going to put a little bit of silver on there and there. This isn't going to be a contest winning model. It's just going to be better than what was there. Now, before I glue in the interior, just want to mention that it originally came with two pegs, one there and one there on both sides of the fuselage. And this peg was supposed to kind of nest up in here. And this one was supposed to go right about here. And I found that things didn't want to really fit in here happily like that. If you remove the rearmost peg, everything seems to line up as it should. I mean, in particular, this bulkhead here has to line up with the bit of the fuselage that's going across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this in place, and then I'm going to tuck the duct into the right position, and I'm going to pin it in place as well. We've got the whole front fuselage all glued together, and there wasn't any drama to it. I just basically started here with some fairly fast-acting plastic cement. Made sure that that wasn't going to split open. Then I moved to here, then along there, and then worked my way around and managed to close everything up. Probably very, very minor filling going to be required. One thing I will have to adjust is the duct is a little high right in there. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there, and then I'm going to put a clothespin in to try to push it down a little bit. Because when I put our nose in place, there's a, if I can get the light on it there, you can see there's a little bit of a misalignment there. So we're going to take care of it. Although you can see the nose actually wants to sit a little low. So if I cut the pins off, and I probably will, this should probably solve some of the problems. I think what I'm going to have to do before gluing the nose on is I'm going to have to rub down all of the sides here just to reduce the overall size to get it to fit a little bit better. So I just spent the last hour and a half doing some editing, and this video is over 20 minutes long, which isn't what I wanted. I was aiming for under the 20-minute mark. So we will wrap this up. There's some touch-up needs to be done here where the instrument panel goes in place. Otherwise, I think we pretty much have achieved what I wanted to achieve. The next step, of course, is going to be working on the nose and the duct, making sure that's all a-okay. But I want to thank everyone for watching this episode of Dan's Model Works, and until next time, just keep modeling.
Oh, they've encased him in carbonite. He should be quite well protected.